Canada's ambassador to the UN spoke to the General Assembly regarding Russia and Ukraine last week.
Whither thou goest, I will go. Whither thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people. And so Canada says to Ukraine and to all those who are challenged, whither thou goest, we will go.
He joins me now from New York. Ambassador, welcome back to the show.
So nice to see you, Mark. It's a great pleasure. Great honor to be with you.
Now, sir, you recently made what many are calling the best speech of your career, which is saying a lot because you're very, very old and you never shut up. Who are you quoting there?
I'm quoting the book of Ruth. Now, it's not Ruth Schwartz, who was a great citizen of Nova Scotia I knew well. It's the book of Ruth, but it was a speech made by Harry Hopkins when he was with Churchill, and he was sent over by Roosevelt to negotiate the Lend-Lease program. So I thought it was an appropriate quotation.
So when we speak about Churchill, of course, we think of the Second World War. Are we headed for another world war here, or is it a Cold War? And are we as Canadians better suited for colder wars?
I think it's a hot war of aggression by Russia against Ukraine. Whether it spreads, we don't know. But what we do know is that we can't allow Ukraine to be taken over by Mr. Putin, and we can't give in to aggression. And so that's why I've been speaking the way I've been speaking. And I appreciate your references to my age. But according to the World Health Organization, I'm still middle-aged.
That's great. Now, we talk about the work we can do without promoting aggression, but do sanctions work? We're banning Russian crude oil when we don't actually import any Russian crude oil. We're banning Russian vodka when most of what we drink isn't made there. What other empty gestures should we make? Is it time to ban Boney M's Rah Rah Rasputin?
Well, it's interesting that this is it's not just Canada, Mark. If you look at what's happening globally, this is the biggest sanctions program that's ever been introduced. The value of the ruble has basically been cut in half. So the impact on Russia will be significant. If they ever open their stock market, which has been put off now for 9 days, if that ever gets opened up, we'll see the impact that it'll have on that part of the Russian economy. But I think the real part of the Russian economy is going to be the story. The challenge is that sanctions take time. It's not that every one of them by Canada makes a difference on its own. It's that what we all do together. And the more we get together, the happier we feel, and the unhappier Mr. Putin will feel.
The more we get together, the happier we feel. So you've gone from quoting someone talking to Churchill to Raffi. That's great. Now, sir, you're an ambassador. Should we kick the Russian ambassador out of Canada, or do you think it's important to keep open the channels of total bullshit?
The latter.
The latter? Yeah.
The latter. I don't believe in expelling diplomats. Maybe
of course not. You're a diplomat. You're sitting in New York. You don't want to get expelled.
Yeah, but no. I mean, so far I'm not going to get kicked. I don't think I'm going to get kicked out of here yet. But
we'll see how this interview goes, buddy.
This is a serious point.
Yeah.
I think we need to have our ambassadors in difficult countries. We don't just have our diplomats in places where we get along well. You don't just talk to your friends. You have to talk to your enemies, and it's really important that we understand that the value that has. Our ambassadors in very difficult posts are doing a terrific job. And they're providing very valuable information to us as we try to assess exactly what's going on in those countries. I wouldn't want to see that line of communication cut, particularly when there's no access. The media has no access to. This show will not be broadcast in Russia. I know you find that hard to believe.
Hey, pal, there's people. Most of Manitoba won't see this show. It's on CBC. This is basically you. This is a secure channel. You can sell your crypto here.
If I'm on any longer, nobody will see this show. If I'm on any longer, no one will see this show.
This has been going on for a long time. Back in 2014, Stephen Harper told Putin to get out of Ukraine. Have a look. We have a clip.
I said to him, I shook his hand. I said, I'll shake your hand, Vladimir, but I have only one thing to tell you, and that is get out of Ukraine. And he paused, looked at me, kind of taken aback, and said to me, I'm not in Ukraine.
Stephen Harper standing up to Putin there. He's the double 007. What should Trudeau do? Can Trudeau reach out to Putin? After all, they both love going shirtless.
I don't think, I mean, the problem with what happened after 2014 is Mr. Harper may have told Mr. Putin to get out of Crimea, but the fact is the world didn't do much about the invasion of Crimea, the occupation of Crimea. And we have to face up to that reality. We didn't do enough early on. And so now we have to decide, well, are we going to let him get away with this? And my take on it is that we can't. And it's incredible to watch the resilience and the courage of the Ukrainian people. So it's not about one conversation or another. It's about all the things that we do to basically make it more and more difficult for Mr. Putin to continue to do what he's doing, and to give more courage, and not just courage, but more weaponry, more capacity, more assistance, and more help, more financial help to the government and the people of Ukraine. That's what we have to do, and frankly, that's what we're doing.
If you could speak directly to Mr. Putin, what would you say?
Well, I did when I gave my speech at the UN. I said, stop the war and take your finger off the nuclear button and never put it back. And that's what has to be said over and over again. He is the one person who can stop the war, and he has to stop it. And in the meantime, we have to do everything we can to come to the assistance of the people of Ukraine so they can do, in terms of military engagement directly with Russia, they can do exactly what has to be done.
Now, the president of Ukraine is a former TV comedian. If you could pick a Canadian TV comedian to be prime minister, who would you pick, and why would it be me?
Well, you know, I hate to suck up to you, Mark. I mean, I think you'd be a good prime minister. I think, however, you'd have to decide who you really are first, because you've got so many characters and you mimic so many of us that I think you might have a hard time figuring out, who am I this day or who would I be that day? But you're talented. You've got a talent. But I think Zelensky, he has more than talent. He has more than, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a sense of humor. In fact, I think it's kind of essential in today's world to have a sense of humor. And he's a hugely talented musician and he's a great showman. But I think what Zelensky has shown us is it's possible to be a showman, to be a comedian, and to be profoundly serious about what you're doing. And Mr. Zelensky is a model. He's been an inspiration to me, and I think he's been an inspiration to many, many millions of people around the world. What he's doing is quite extraordinary.
You're right when you say I had to pick who I am, but think of it this way, Bob. I could be the prime minister and I could be my own caucus. Think of the savings to the taxpayer.
Well, if you were prime minister, you would be your own caucus.
I would. I have a lot of experience with my own caucus. After all, I'm a Canadian entertainer. But we recently saw the convoy in Ottawa. Those people said they were fighting for freedom. Who has the bigger fight, the people of Ukraine or those people who don't want to wear a mask in Costco? And have the Ukrainians considered honking?
Well, they're doing more than honking. They're fighting. But I think that what they're doing is showing what this is really all about, and what a sacrifice is all about, and what courage is all about. And that's what makes such a huge difference, I think. They're showing incredible courage. I mean, a honk is not a speech, and we all know that. And a horn is not a voice. So let's put things in perspective. What was happening before had nothing to do with freedom. It had to do with license and with excess. And what the people of Ukraine are all about is about fighting for their own freedom, and fighting, frankly, for the freedom of everybody, because you have to stand up to a bully. At some point, a bully, you have to say, you're not going to get away with this. We're not going to go away. And I think that's been a model for all of us that we should listen to and imitate.
Now, Bob, looking at your career, I mean, you were an arguably unpopular Premier of Ontario, then interim leader of the Liberals when the party was at its lowest. And since you've been Canada's ambassador to the UN, we've seen a global pandemic, the Taliban take Afghanistan, and now a conflict in Ukraine. Bob, buddy, do you ever think maybe it's you?
No, when somebody said, "What are you doing this tonight?" I said, "I'm doing a show with Mark Critch," and he said, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "I don't know why, but I keep on coming back for more. It's terrible." But I really appreciate your support, Mark, and the way that you build people up, the way you make them feel good about themselves, but most importantly, the way you ignore the fact that when I was Premier of Ontario, the Blue Jays won the World Series twice in a row. You think that was an accident? I don't think so.
Well, Bob, it's been a rough couple of years, to say the least. A lot of people in Canada are depressed and anxious. What Bob ray of sunshine would you offer to them in this dark time?
It gets better. I think it's important to stress that. Love your families. Tell a joke. And stay off Twitter. That's my advice.
Thank you, sir. Ambassador Bob Ray, you're welcome anytime.
See you later.